Really?
You are Locked On Saints, your daily New Orleans Saints podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is good, Who Dat Nation and Who Dat family? Welcome into another episode of Locked On Saints, your daily podcast covering your favorite team, the New Orleans Saints. Part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks so much as always, making Locked On Saints your first listen of the day every day. Don't forget, we are free and available on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube as well. I'm your host, Ross Jackson, at Ross Jackson Nola on Twitter, your New Orleans Saints expert credential member of the media, CrescentCitySports.com, USA Today Saints Wire, Tuesdays on Locked On NFL, and here with you every single Monday through Friday on Locked On Saints. Today's episode of Locked On Saints brought to you by our friends over at LinkedIn. LinkedIn helps you talk to the qualified candidates that you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free today over at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. On today's episode, the New Orleans Saints making the, what I'll call for now, curious decision of making no major changes, particularly when it comes to offensive coordinator and their offensive coaching staff. They made one coaching move, and it sounds like that's the only one that they plan to make, at least for now. So we'll break all that down, why the New Orleans Saints chose to commit to Pete Carmichael. I'll give you my thoughts. I'll try to look at it from the team's perspective, but let's just be real. I'm not a big fan of this move. Second, we'll take a look at how the onus is on the New Orleans Saints to prove to you that they're right, but they're going to need a lot of help in order to get that done. We'll talk about how they can get it. And then we'll wrap up the show with the potential long-term impact that this could have for better or for worse through 2023. So let's start off with the decision, is what we'll call it. The New Orleans Saints choosing to stick with offensive coordinator Pete Carmichael, particularly in a report that came from Mike Triplett of New Orleans.football. The big commitment here is that the New Orleans Saints moved on from Dan Roushar, who, of course, was their tight end coach and run game coordinator. So there will be somebody stepping into that position. But outside of that, sounds like the New Orleans Saints not making any further changes to their coaching staff. And I'm going to be 100% honest with you. That, to me, is absolutely shocking. I don't know how you look back at 2022 and say, yeah, let's do that again. And that's me diminishing it a little bit, I'll be honest. And listen, I know a lot of people come to this show because they want an even keel, sort of level-headed perspective on things. And I'm going to do my best to give that to you. But let me tell you, I'm going to be real for just a moment. And I don't have a lot of faith in this move for the New Orleans Saints. I don't see how you look at 2022 in a situation where, yes, you dealt with injuries. Yes, you had a backup quarterback playing quarterback for you, right? Everybody talks about how, Andy Dalton did more than he was asked for in 2022, all those other things. Yeah, that's true. He was brought in to be the backup quarterback, but he was pretty quickly made the starting quarterback, and you decided to stick with him throughout the season. That's on you. And so I don't leverage that against Pete Carmichael or against the criticism that Pete Carmichael has gotten over the course of the offseason. I look at runs on 2nd and 10, particularly after incomplete passes on 1st and 10, the bad habit that was created out of that, the lack of Alvin Kamara being even on the field on 3rd downs, the lack of committing to a usage plan for Taysom Hill, for not ever finding a identity for this offense, for not having key players on the field in key moments, for running two receiver routes on pivotal plays when you're trying to keep Tom Brady from coming back. We've watched this offense go flat over and over and over and over again to the point to where they couldn't win games when the defense wasn't allowing any more than 20 points on the board. And I know they won 3 out of their last 4. I know they looked better towards the end than they did to the beginning, but let's look at what this offense actually was. This offense was nothing more than one that continuously got in its way and refused to get out of its way. And now in 2023, you're trying to sell everyone on that or some version of that. That to me is baffling going into 2023. Now, if I try, I wanted to get that out of the way. I wanted to get that out of the way because it's fair to be critical of this decision. I truly think it is. It is fair to be critical of this decision based on everything that we learned about the New Orleans Saints offense, everything that we learned about Pete Carmichael as a play caller without a Drew Brees under center. it's fair to be critical of this decision. It's just like I said yesterday in yesterday's episode, that if the Saints do commit to this coaching staff, it is on them to prove you wrong. You have every right to believe that if they don't make changes, that you will see the same product in 2023 that you saw in 2022, and it's on them to change your mind. So it is completely warranted for you to feel that way until they prove otherwise. Now, if I'm trying to look at this from the team's perspective, the rest of the NFC South is undergoing changes at either or multiple positions, including offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, and head coach. So the Saints could look at this as an opportunity to say, okay, well, we're going to get 2 years where everyone else has no years of continuity, right? They're going back to the continuity cohesion play, which is what they went for in 2022. And that lended 7-10, 22nd ranked scoring offense, the worst that they have had since Sean Payton showed up in 2006. Well, the worst that they had in 2005 because Sean Payton showed up in 2006. So for me, yeah, I get the idea, but it's hard to say that I see it working. Like, they did the cohesion continuity thing in 2022 and look where it got them. Now they're going to do it again in 2023 and expect you to believe that you're going to see better results. They have to prove that to you. This is the same time, like Dennis Allen talked to us about it one time during a press conference, talking about consistently doing something and consistently doing the same thing and expecting a different result, and talking about it being the definition of insanity. Well, now you're doing the same thing and expecting a different result, despite the fact that you already know how this looked in the first place. And again, I know that the Saints dealt with injuries on the offensive side, but I'm not talking about how the team performed from an injury perspective. I'm talking about decisions that were made. Bad decisions that were made, and bad decisions that were made consistently. So yes, I could see the Saints saying, okay, the Carolina Panthers are going to have a new head coach and a new defensive coordinator. The Atlanta Falcons are going to have a new starting quarterback and a defensive coordinator. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers are going to have a new offensive coordinator, a new play caller, potentially a new quarterback. So they're sitting back and saying, okay, well, going to have probably a new starting quarterback in 2023, but same head coach, same offensive play caller, and ideally the same defensive coordinators, assuming that one of or both Ryan Nielsen and Chris Roushar don't get hired away this offseason. So they're opting into zero of the major coaching changes. And of course, Darren Rizzi's not going anywhere, because why would he? He's been excellent, right? Special teams coach, assistant head coach. He was never in question this offseason anyway, unless he gets an opportunity elsewhere, but I don't know. So I could see that perspective, but I don't agree with it. I don't think that's the right move, but we'll see, right? At the end of the 2023 season, we'll either be talking about the New Orleans Saints outplaying their division because of their continuity, or being outplayed by their division because they refuse to evolve. It's going to be one of the two, and it's on them to prove that they're right. It's on them to show you which one it is. But the honest, at the end of the year conversation will be one of those two conversations. The other thing that I could see is New Orleans Saints not wanting to jump into what I call a Red Sea, right? It's shark-infested waters. You've got 10 teams right now that have open offensive coordinator positions. Where would the New Orleans Saints, without a starting quarterback, with some changes coming in over on the offensive side, with the outlook of what they did in 2022, a potential suspension awaiting for Alvin Kamara, where will they actually rank amongst the priority of teams that have open offensive coordinator spots? That could end up having an impact as well. But are you going to be better next year in 2023 without any change at all? You're going to have to prove that to me. And that's where we're going to go next. That's where that's what the New Orleans Saints are in for now. It's on them. It's the onus is now on the New Orleans Saints to prove to you that they are right. But they're going to need a lot of help. They're going to need a lot of help to get there. So we'll get to that as we continue on with today's episode of Locked On Saints. Today's episode of Locked On Saints brought to you by our friends over at LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs is awesome. You've probably already used it to look for a job. Did you know that you can also post jobs as well? Let's say maybe you are a small business owner or a hiring manager. You're getting into 2023. You want to start the year off right. You want to fill out your team. Well, LinkedIn Jobs will help you do that. They've got great tools like screening questions, things like that, to make sure that the candidates, the people that you want to talk to, have the skills, values, and experience in order to help you and your company achieve your goals. They can help you quickly attract qualified candidates to your job with their targeting tools. You can put your hashtag hiring frame up on your profile to spread the news that you're hiring. LinkedIn Jobs makes it super, super easy to screen, rate applicants based on the job qualifications, all on one platform. That's why small businesses voted LinkedIn Jobs #1 when it came to delivering hires versus leading candidates. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. So post your job for free today at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. All right, family, continuing on with today's episode of Locked On Saints. New Orleans Saints make the curious decision to make no major changes on their coaching staff at head coach, offensive coordinator, or defensive coordinator. Special teams coordinator was never really in the conversation, but make no changes there. And that means now that the onus is on the New Orleans Saints to prove to you that they're making the right decision. But if they're going to do that, they're going to need a good bit of help, particularly over on the offensive side. Thank you very much, so much, actually, for making Locked On Saints your first listen of the day. Don't forget to also go and check out Locked On NFL whenever you get a chance for your second listen today as well. So for the New Orleans Saints, making the decision to stick with Pete Carmichael comes with tons of ramifications. The first of which you can already see, which is the sort of fan feeling around all of it. The New Orleans Saints fans, obviously not very happy with the decision to stick with Pete Carmichael in particular at offensive coordinator, but also just kind of like showing no real sort of want to make any visible changes and steps towards improving in 2023 based upon where they left off in 2022. Now, the Saints could feel that the changes would take them further away from where they want to go. They clearly believe in the people that they have, but I think, like I mentioned earlier, it's justifiable to ask questions around or even criticize this decision until the Saints prove otherwise. But if the Saints want to prove otherwise, the task just got a lot harder. We spoke yesterday about how if the Saints get the offensive coordinator hire right, if they make a change there, then finding a quarterback that could simply come in and run your system, facilitate the offense, maximize the playmakers around Chris Olave, Rashid Shaheed, Alvin Kamara, and any new weapons that you add, then the system can carry the rest, right? Things that we see all the time to where you have a system like Nick Sirianni and the Philadelphia Eagles. They have a really good system, and they also have a really good quarterback that can come in and more than functionally manage that system. But if somebody came in, Gardner Minshew steps in and he scores 34 points against he helps the team rather score 30 plus points against the Dallas Cowboys because the system elevated that quarterback who could come in and just facilitate the role. The Saints are no longer in that conversation because if the Saints are taking the 2022 offense and moving it into 2023, which is exactly what it looks like they're doing. Now, expect that they're going to make changes, expect they're going to find ways to be more creative, all of those things. But, this was an offense that had Dennis Allen standing in front of us in December saying that they had to find more creative ways to use Alvin Kamara in December, which is ridiculous. Like, it's a terrible position for you to be in as a head coach, to be put in that position to where you're talking about, we got to find more ways to be creative in December. And so the Saints have to make changes. They have to show the improvement, and fixing the offensive system is going to be a big part of it, which means stop trying to be Sean Payton and not be Sean Payton at the same time. Be one or be the other. And that's a big piece of what was wrong with the system in the first place. They wanted to do everything like Sean Payton, except for run the screen passes, except for, use that creativity on offense. Except for relying on Taysom Hill. They didn't want Taysom Hill to be a part of the quarterback conversation, but yet they utilize him. Just all these little confusing and non-correlating ideas. And that's going to cause conflict within your offense's ability to be good versus your desire to be good. But now, if you're the New Orleans Saints, you need a playmaker at quarterback. And where are you going to find one? Short of going out there and trying to court Lamar Jackson, who, by the way, is going to be a Baltimore Raven. Like, I'm fairly certain he'll be a Baltimore Raven. I wouldn't even consider anything other than that. And so they can just tag him, they can keep him, there's all these other things. So unless he really pushes his way out, it sounds like he'll be in Baltimore. So yeah, unless you're going to go and get that guy, then what are you doing? Right? So you have to have a playmaker on offense. So this leans us further and further and further towards what could end up being a high draft pick, their highest draft pick being spent on a quarterback, utilized on a quarterback that they feel can come in and facilitate an offense and make plays, or a desperation heave at a quarterback, sort of like what started to happen at the beginning of the 2022 season when the Saints almost sold the farm to bring Deshaun Watson, who would have missed 11, 12 games and then shown up and been a part of this offense in 2022. So thankfully, the Saints didn't do that, but now they may have to take a desperation heave or a desperation swing at a quarterback, because if the offensive system is going to be consistent going into 2023, you can't have an Andy Dalton anymore. Not have an Andy Dalton and win, right? Like if you're just trying to put people together and you're all in on like a collapse for Caleb type situation, then fine. But outside of that, if you're really trying to win games and what should be a wide open NFC South division in 2023, you got to get better quarterback play. And you could have it in Jameis Winston potentially if Jameis Winston sticks around. I don't want to discount that. There is the opportunity there, sure, but that doesn't seem likely. And if that doesn't happen, then where do you go? So you'd have to draft a quarterback that you feel like can come in and make those plays and help you improve and all of that. And so where do you find that guy? Could Hendon Hooker be that guy? Maybe in the second round, but is he going to be ready for 2023? We don't know. Could Anthony Richardson be that guy? I certainly don't think so, but maybe the team does. So there's options in terms of the draft, but as of right now, like, what do you do? Where do you go? So the Saints have to figure that part out. They have got to figure that part out and go out there and get a quarterback that's going to be able to help them be better than they were in 2022. And you have to add the other pieces that we had discussed before too. You've got to continue to build around Alvin Kamara in the running back room. You've got to continue to go out and search for a contested catch threat. You need to keep Juwan Johnson. Now, Juwan Johnson was a must keep before. Now you better lock him down to an 8-year contract if you can, just to get him to stay for 4. Like, the Saints have a big job ahead of them in 2023 now that they have made this decision to stand pat while everyone else in the NFC South is working on changing, improving, evolving, all of that. The Saints decide to stand pat. It's a bold move, Cotton. Let's see how it works out for them. But I don't blame you for not having some confidence here. I don't blame you for being critical here. I really don't. And it's on the Saints to change your mind. And they're going to need a lot of help in order to get that done. And it's going to start at quarterback, right? They can't just have a game manager. They can't just have a facilitator. They're going to need a playmaker now. And it's on them to figure out who that person is going to be. And certainly we'll discuss more options and things like that as we get back to shows next week. So coming up next, there is some potential long-term impact here, because if this doesn't work, and it doesn't work, it's not necessarily if it doesn't work. There's two scenarios here. There's a scenario for the New Orleans Saints in which it doesn't work, and that turns out to be what the Saints needed. And there's a scenario to where it doesn't work just enough for everyone to be upset about it, and for some people's jobs to potentially be on the line. That's what we got coming up for you as we continue on and wrap up today's episode of Locked On Saints. Today's episode of Locked On Saints brought to you by our friends over at Built Bar, the best tasting protein bar on the market. If you're like me, you went a little overboard over the holidays, okay? A little bit overboard over the holidays. So now you're trying to watch out and everything. It is New Year's. You're working on a New Year's resolution. That's what Built Bars are just the best for. That's why I love Built Bars. These things taste incredible without giving you all of the fat and calories and stuff like that of some of our favorite snacks out there. This is healthy and actually tasty. Covered in 100% chocolate, only 100 calories though, 4 grams of sugar, and a whopping 17 grams of protein. And now it's even easier to find them, because not only can you get them at built.com, you can also find them at Walmart, where you can get a 4-box of cookies and cream, double chocolate, or coconut puffs, or you can go to Sam's Club and get a 13-bar box of their hit flavors like brownie batter and churro. Yeah, you can thank me later. So go and check them out today. The best tasting protein bar on the market. You can find it at Sam's Club, over at Walmart, or of course at built.com. Let's get it, Who Dat Nation. Wrap it up today's episode of Locked On Saints. New Orleans Saints making this decision could potentially put some jobs on the line in 2023. And that's just kind of the reality of any time that general managers, head coaches make decisions to stick with personnel. That then means that they are taking the responsibility and the accountability of whatever happens after that. You look at other teams around the NFL, like the Los Angeles Chargers, for instance, Brandon Staley, they fire Joe Lombardi, and that was a move that they probably should have made. Let's face it, Lombardi hasn't been the greatest over their former New Orleans Saints assistant, used to be the quarterback coach here in New Orleans. But, you move on from him, and then all of a sudden what you hear is the phrase a lot, scapegoat, right? To where, they didn't want to fire the head coach, so they moved on from the assistants, which are cheaper to hire, things like that. We're seeing that in Tampa right now. Byron Leftwich, who just won a Super Bowl as a play caller just 2 years ago, now all of a sudden let go because he was calling plays for a 45-year-old quarterback. But no, it's not the 45-year-old quarterback's fault. It's the offensive coordinator's fault. So let's get him up out of here. So that then means that the next year, if you don't do that, or if you do that, that means that the next year you kind of get to go, oh, well, we were working with new staff and stuff like that. So we're just going to give them an opportunity to get. The next thing, though, is that if you don't make those decisions, you don't make those changes, then all of a sudden there's nowhere else to run anymore, right? So if things don't work in 2023, this is going to come down on Dennis Allen. This is going to come down on Mickey Loomis. And both of those guys are going to get a lot of heat if this doesn't work out. Do I think that they'll go anywhere? Mickey Loomis? No. Dennis Allen? Possibly, right? Dennis Allen has had a couple of shots at head coach before. He had his best head coaching season with the Saints in 2022, but still only won 7 games. If they come in at or below that in 2023, what's to stop the New Orleans Saints from making a move there, right? So that's the bad side of this, is that the Saints go in, they roll with continuity, they roll with cohesion. They say, yeah, we're going to run it back. We got the boys. We're good. And then they move into 2023, and then all of a sudden they get into a situation to where they win 7, 8 games, and then they're right back in the middle of the first round of the draft with nowhere to go. And do what after that? The other side of this is that things go spectacularly poorly. Spectacularly poorly. They go out there, they win 3 games in 2022 or 2023, and they're in line for an early selection in the 2024 NFL draft, and Caleb Williams falls right into their lap. I don't think you play for that, right? There's not really a lot of evidence of tanking in the NFL. Sean Payton will tell you that there's been 2, and that's really it, right? And so I think if you're the New Orleans Saints, you need this to either go spectacularly poorly, or you need this to be a home run. And I don't mean a playoff appearance. I mean a playoff win. I mean a Super Bowl appearance. Like, you really need to convince people you made the right decision here. You can't just luck into a division title and then into a super wild card game and lose a super wild card game and expect everyone to say, oh, well, at least they made the playoffs. That's not going to be enough for this fan base right now. This fan base is going to want NFC Championship or bust. This fan base might want Super Bowl or bust, right? That's unrealistic expectation, but hey, fans gonna fan, and they, as well, you should. And so I think that that becomes the biggest piece of this, is how does this work out in 2023? And what does that mean for everyone around that made this decision? This is a lot to kind of run your money on. This is a big one to run your money on, to roll your dice on, to gamble with, right? To say, okay, 2022 was not great, but 2023 can be better if we don't make any changes. That's bold. It's a bold decision. And it doesn't mean that it's a wrong decision. We won't know until 5, 6 games into the season. If they're 0-5, 0-6, then okay, we know pretty quickly, right? But if they're 4-2, and then down the stretch they're 6-3, and then down the stretch they're 8-5, how exhausting would that be, right? You need double-digit wins in 2023. You need to convincingly win this NFC South. You need to win playoff games in 2023 after making this decision. Otherwise, hot water, hot seats, all of it. And then the only thing that saves you beyond that is if it goes spectacularly poorly and you fall right into Caleb Williams, and then everybody gets to say, wait, we got him. We got him. One more year. We got him. And honestly, I don't even know if that's enough for some of the people that would be involved in this. I think that's enough for Mickey. I think Mickey's okay in that case. But you get a generational quarterback and 2 years of flat offense, you got to make a change. And you got to make big changes after that. And that is the best worst case scenario, which is so weird to be talking about in covering the New Orleans Saints. This is where we are now. Like, I'm watching people talk about not renewing their season tickets. I'm watching people talk about not buying merch, not buying single tickets, not going to games anymore. I looked at a mostly empty Superdome toward the end of the season. Like, this is different here in New Orleans, and not in a good way. Not in a good way. So the New Orleans Saints have a heavy lift ahead of them. And look, all the accountability's on them now. All the accountability's on them, the decision makers, so on and so forth. But they've got a long way to go before they have to start answering the questions. And then so it gives them time to get the moves right in order to get it all done. But then they have a long way to go to answer those questions. And until then, the questions are going to keep coming. Appreciate y'all as always for joining me for another episode of Locked On Saints. We'll be back with you on Monday. This is the Friday episode here. So we'll be back with you on Monday, taking a look at where the heck the New Orleans Saints are going to find the quarterback necessary to make them successful in 2023. Because unless they're about to undergo some big-time offensive scheme shifts, schematic shifts, philosophy shifts, if they're rolling with the same one last year, they need a much better quarterback under center than anybody that they have in the building right now that we expect to be back in 2023, which is effectively no one, right? Unless Jameis Winston comes back. So we're going to break that down. Where do they find those quarterbacks, Jameis Winston included? We have that coming up for you on Monday. Appreciate you as always for making Locked On Saints your first listen of the day every day. For your second listen, make sure you're going to check out Locked On NFL. Get all the news around the world of the National Football League every day in around 30 minutes with the Locked On NFL show. Key predictions get you ready for the weekend's matchups. And then, of course, game to game get you all of the inside knowledge on how things shook out over the weekend that drops on Mondays. You can find Locked On NFL wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube as well. Appreciate you as always, making me a part of your day, part of your routine, for saying yes to me and the show. As always, if you see me, say hi. If you need anything else around your New Orleans Saints in between these episodes, make sure you follow me on Twitter at Ross Jackson, NOLA. Hit me up. Let me know how the family's doing. Let me know how you living. Let me know how you momming them. And trust you, that nation. I'll holla at you.